Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I want to talk to you about black tax and my thoughts about it. I got this video idea a while ago, like I think sometime in 2022. I actually got it from one of my subscribers, but when you get video ideas you feel like you cannot really do anything with them until maybe a later time you're able to actually bring those ideas to life, which is what I'm trying to do with this video. So I'm just going to talk to you about black tax, give you the definition and things that surround it, because I think that it is more common than people talk about, and I think that these are conversations that need to be had in the society that we live in, especially in Nigeria, where there are a lot of poor people who depend on family members to help them to feed. So without further ado, let's get into it. But before we do, please make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. Please make sure that you also subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified every single time that I publish a new video. So black tax basically means providing some kind of financial help or support to your parents, your family members, or your relatives. And sometimes it may or may not affect the person who is carrying out these responsibilities, because a large chunk of the money that you make from your work goes to your immediate family because you have to provide for them. Black tax is typically always existent in families or in societies where a lot of the people who live there are poor. For instance, here in Nigeria, we have people who go abroad to the UK, to the US, to Canada, to Australia, to other countries in Europe to seek greener pastures. So, in situations like that, you're very likely to see people or individuals who are the ones that are taxed by their family members, because it's kind of like a societal thing, like, oh, okay, you were able to go there and succeed and do all this, so you might as well just provide for your family. And on the surface level it sounds very, very okay, like it sounds like, okay, no big deal, just send a specific amount every month. But I think that if you dissect the matter in a deeper level, you see that sometimes it is not very beneficial to the person who is sending this money, and even to those who are or who may be receiving this money. In a country like Nigeria or in a continent like Africa, where some places are impoverished, you typically see black tax happening because Africa is a very, very community centered continent. So let me say Nigeria as well is a very community centered continent. Oh, sorry, country. And it's because we are largely dependent on family values. We are largely dependent on just having ourselves around and supporting each other to the extent that we can. So I would say that something like black tax is more or less inevitable in a country like Nigeria or in a continent like Africa. I feel like it's strongly tied to our values, because here we put a lot of value and we give a lot of respect to the elderly, and we think that, okay, your parents have trained you up to this point, so it's left to you to start to support them when they're no longer working, because in this part of the world we don't put our parents in old people homes. Our parents typically live on their own, or maybe they live with one or two of their children. So that's basically how it works. I have a few, polarizing, or should I say dissenting opinions on parents living with their children after they've like grown up and they're established. But what do I know? I'm just going to keep my opinions just going to keep my opinions aside and talk about this. Yes. So I'm going to get into what I actually think about black tax. I feel like in a way it is probably good and bad, and somehow I feel like it's more on the negative side, because I kind of feel like when you say black tax, it connotes something like you being coerced into sending money back home, no matter how difficult it is for you. And a lot of people can be ignorant, especially Nigerians. Sometimes they do false equivalencies and they will try to calculate what you're making in dollars and say, oh my god, so you're making this amount of money. And it's like, it's not the same, because you know that if you live in another country, I mean, the prices of things vary. You still need to pay your rent, which is ridiculously expensive. Nigerians do this a lot, where they convert your dollars to naira and they start thinking that, okay, what they've converted to naira is what you're spending abroad. Meanwhile, it's not the same thing. So I feel like with the whole black tax thing, I think that people still need to work, because you have a sibling or a family relative that is doing fairly well and they're kind of mandated to support the family. It doesn't mean that you should now start to depend on them fully, because a lot of people think of you traveling abroad and think that it's just greener pastures, but it is a lot to get into. You have a ton of bills to pay. I mean, it's not, trust me, it's not like Nigeria. You have to pay for your taxes, you have to commute to work, you have to pay for your rent, you have to buy food. And let's not even forget how difficult it is to neutralize or socialize with a new environment where you were not brought up in, but you have a new life there. And then somebody is calling you from Nigeria, oh, please send us money, send us money. Now, don't even get me wrong. If it's a case where it is maybe your elderly parents that you have to take care of, yeah, the situation may not be very comfortable, but there's nothing wrong. I don't think that there's anything wrong in taking care of your elderly parents, especially if they've put in so much work to get you to where you are. If it's elderly parents who cannot work again, yes, I understand that. But I would hate for black tax to be a thing where you have able-bodied young people who can actually do something and earn a living, and then they'll keep depending on that one family member. I just think that is ridiculous. And I know, yes, that these things vary because people are in different situations. Some people are really, really poor and maybe they don't even have an idea of how to make the next money that's going to uplift them from poverty. I may be talking from a place of privilege, but I just think that at the end of the day, you have to consider the person that is sending back this money because they need that money very, very much. And it's like you're just there sitting down waiting for it to be handed over to you. Like, I genuinely don't think that life is always like that, unless maybe you come from a rich home. If you come from a fairly poor home or an average home, or you maybe you're less privileged, I think you probably even have to work 10 times harder than the person who comes from a rich home, because the opportunities are not so easy to come by for you. I hope that makes sense. So I think that it's very important to still put in the work, yeah, because you have somebody who sends money back home, or is quote obligated to send money back home and all those things, doesn't mean that you should sit down, relax, and then open your arms and wait for the money to drop down from the sky. I really think that it's unfair. I think people also need to open their minds to the fact that you going abroad does not mean that everywhere is like green pastures. It has its own struggles. I'm not discouraging anybody from going abroad, though. Please, if you want to go, by all means. I think it's even good for people to go and experience what life is outside of their home country, because it exposes you to a lot of things that you may not really expect. Maybe forced to just adapt to the situation, and it takes a while. Like, remember when I talked about first time I went to America, I was like, I felt so depressed, and I was just like, it was horrible because I felt like I didn't fit in. I think that there is still a need for people to work, because you can't keep depending on somebody to do every single thing for you, especially as an adult. Another opinion I have on black tax, I feel like in a bid to avoid it with our own generation, I think it's best to start, and I know this sounds like a stretch, but start planning, or start thinking about your retirement, because now the world has become a bit more difficult. Things are harder than they used to be. Rent is higher, everything is higher, inflation, food, every single thing. So it is more difficult for young people right now to settle down, get married, get a house, get a car, because of how expensive things are. So if you keep on depending, if you want to use the logic of your parents, of which I feel like our parents are not thinking about it from our own perspective, but if you want to use the logic of your parents and say, okay, I'm going to depend on my children to take care of me when I'm old, I don't know how sustainable that is. Hopefully, God will bless your children and everything will be good for you guys, and that's good. But I still feel like an adult should just think about about their retirement. Now, speaking of our parents here, I feel like a lot of times they don't see things from our own perspectives, and I honestly don't blame them. I'm not even going to point fingers, because their generation is so different from our generation. So there's a lot of gap, and the way they see things, it is definitely not going to change anytime soon. So like it's no use trying to get mad at it. I just feel like it is really sad that, okay, maybe they complain about inflation as well, they talk about how the price of everything has increased, yet they still kind of expect to feed off of the little that their younger ones or their young children are trying to establish or to grow. Think about being maybe a middle-aged man, maybe you're like in your 30s, right? You're abroad, you're trying to set up or establish a life for yourself, get a wife, get married, get a car, get a house. All these things, they cost money. Do you understand? They cost money, and then you still hear people will come in to tell you, something, 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 bills, this one, that one. I, like I said, I don't have a problem with people taking care of their parents. I think it's a good thing to do, but I just feel like I think parents should also understand it from the perspective of their children, that things are not the way they used to be in the 90s, okay, or or in the 80s. They are not the way they used to be. Another opinion that I have on black tax is that you shouldn't be entitled to people's money. I thank God for the kind of person that I am. I'm not entitled to people's money, and you can't use money to be doing me like a dog. Like, okay, look at money, I'll look this way. Look at money, I'll look this way. No, I'm not that kind of person, because thankfully, as I was growing up, God was able to provide for us in my family. So money is not really something that will move me a lot, and I'm generally just not an entitled person, especially when it comes to money. I've always believed, this is one of my personal principles as a human being. I've always believed so much in the fact that you have to work to earn your money. There is like a feeling, a really nice feeling that comes with you knowing that you put in the work and you earned money. It's dignifying, and that's just my own opinion. Some people may think otherwise, and that's fine, but I'm of the opinion that you need to work for your money, okay, and not be entitled to other people's money. I really hate it when people are entitled. It really, it's such an ick for me. I always ask, okay, what do you think you've done to be entitled to this thing, or what do you think you've done to deserve this thing? I don't know if that makes sense. It's very important to not be entitled to people's money, as much as I think that there are some circumstances where people are entitled to other people's money. For instance, if you're a child and you're being provided for by your parents, then yeah, you're entitled to them taking care of you and spending money on you because it's their responsibility. How do you want to get ahead in life if you think that everything should be handed to you just because you have somebody, or you know somebody who is in a better place than you? How do you expect to get to the level where that person is at if what you're doing is that you keep asking and being entitled to everything? I thank God for the kind of sibling that I am. I try not to, disturb my siblings for money. The only time that I'll ask for money is if I'm seriously broke. That's the only time I can count the number of times on my hand. I can count the number of times that I've asked my siblings for money, and some of my siblings are not in the country. So I thank God for the kind of person that I am, and I'm grateful to God for giving me that spirit of contentment as well. My last and final point is to find ways to be successful, and this largely ties into the point that I just made. You having your own money comes with some kind of freedom, some kind of respect, because it's something that you've worked for, something that you have earned. So I think it's really, really important to find ways to be successful by yourself, because you can't keep depending on that one person forever and ever. When I talk about these things, I'm talking largely to younger people. Older people in Nigeria may not necessarily have the skills to start applying for jobs. Like, they're not going to do that. Do you understand? Their kids are taking care of them. That's just the dynamics of the society, of our society. So I think that it's very important to develop skills that will set you apart, or skills that will help you to be successful or make a certain amount of money. It doesn't have to be so much money, but starting from somewhere is really, really important. I made a video sharing some career tips that I have learned over the years. I think I'm going to link it here if that video goes up before this one, so that you can see what I said when it comes to sharpening your skills and putting yourself out there so that you can be more employable. And don't even get me wrong, I understand that people have different situations. Okay, my videos only go so far. I'm pretty sure that they may not be even be reaching some rural areas in Nigeria where people really, really have it difficult. So in that case, I would say maybe that is the exception, because there are so many nuances to talking about things like this, especially when you're talking about people who live in a very poor country. And that's basically what I have to say for this video. I didn't want it to be anything too long or too serious, but I wanted to just get people thinking, or just get the conversation, or just put the conversation out there so people actually know and understand what it is like. Thankfully, I've not been in that position where I have to be a victim of black tax. And I say victim, I use that word very loosely. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please let me know in the comments. If you found it thought-provoking, let me know in the comments as well. If there's anything I may have missed, let me know in the comments as well. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to also subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified of every single time that I publish a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.